Greetings and welcome to an LGR thing about something that I feel like talking about because I feel like it, and that is this right here, the lovely Microsoft Sidewinder Force Feedback Pro from 1997. And it has long been one of my favorite joysticks, and in my opinion, it's still one of the best to this day on the right setup. I mean, the force feedback nature of this, what this can do, is still pretty special. So let's take a look at it. Yes, push reality beyond sight and sound. By the time this particular bundle was released, it was indeed the #1 selling force feedback joystick. Not that there was much competition. First there was sight, then there was sound, then Microsoft revolutionized the gaming industry with dynamic force feedback technology and earned PC Gamer's Editor's Choice Award. Indeed they did, beginning with the Sidewinder Force Feedback Wheel and the Force Feedback Pro joystick following soon after, pretty much around the same time from what I remember seeing in stores anyway. And on that note, this thing cost $159.99 US in 1997 when it initially launched, or around $300 26 years later adjusted for inflation. Of course, being the late 90s, mail-in rebates were common, both in the store with the retailer you bought it from, and also just in the box, like with mine here, which came with a $30 mail-in rebate. And I do remember specifically seeing this for sale at the CompUSA in Greensboro, North Carolina back then. They had this awesome in-store display unit with the joystick setup and a computer. You could just press the buttons and it would do different things, sort of mimicking different scenes that you might get in different games, and you could see what all the force feedback effects were, and there were a bunch of them. I think 12 different types of feedback effects were directly supported with the DirectX Direct Input API, but of course game programmers could make use of all these effects and mix them up and do all sorts of fascinating things to create intriguing forces. And yeah, that CompUSA demo really stood out in my mind, and I was super excited to find this particular box example on Thrifts some years back in Greensboro. And in fact, this actually has a CompUSA sticker right there, January 5th, 99 as a date code, I suppose. And yeah, this is very much likely one of the things that came from that exact Greensboro CompUSA store that I first saw this demoed. It's just, I don't know, I was so excited to see that like all these things came together decades later, and now here we are even more years later, and I'm really excited to take a look at it. So let's go ahead and unbox this sucker. So like I said, I found this thrifting, so I don't know if it's 100% complete, but whatever. So first up is the stick itself, a substantial thing indeed. It weighs this much. Pretty hefty for a joystick of the time, and pretty good materials too, as Microsoft often went with their Sidewinder products. So going from bottom to top here, we have a shift button, which changes the function of each of these, shifts between different layers. We have a little half sphere throttle right there. 4 action buttons right here, a little hat, and 4 more buttons up at the top, with the 4th one being the trigger. So there are 8 buttons in total, really becoming 16 with the use of the shift button. I also have this nice rubbery sort of gear lever-esque sleeve around the bottom of the stick right there. All the motors are inside this thickness. This right here always looked kind of like it would be a fan opening or something to me, but it's covered up. Not really much to see along the bottom, but there it is. And then it connects to your PC using the 15-pin game port. And then you have this, and that is for power. So yeah, this thing has its own separate wall wart power supply brick. It is a unit, a 12 volt, 1.3 amp, 30 watt power supply. You do get some software, of course, with the Sidewinder program and drivers and all that right there. And in this particular pack, you get the full version of Urban Assault. Others before this often came with Interstate 76. And of course, some paperwork. This ad here for high-end home audio now on your PC. A pretty neat looking speaker system from Microsoft there. Digital Sound System 80. Anybody ever have one of these? I've never heard one. Let's see, Microsoft Gaming Zone and this Fighter Ace thing that you could play online. A survival card, really just a quick reference for Urban Assault. Nice to have because it's kind of a complicated game if you can tell by looking at that. And a getting started guide for the force feedback sidewinders of the time, which there's not much in here. Really, it's just like, here's how to connect and plug things in and mount stuff. It really just kind of goes over the steering wheel. Doesn't really show much of anything about the joystick, but honestly, you don't do anything really different except you're not mounting it to a desk. Although I kind of wish you could. We'll see why. And of course, in a moment, we're going to set this thing up with an era-appropriate computer and some games and the software and stuff that it came with, and really put this through its paces and try out all those awesome force feedback effects. But you know, I realize that these aren't really so much of a thing anymore. So just to clarify, force feedback is distinct and different from just straight up rumble or tactile feedback or haptic feedback or any of that. This right here relies on motorized motion and resistance, physically pushing the controller around against your hand. So you really have to fight it, so to speak. You feel this thing pushing against whatever you're trying to do and imitating G-forces and gunfire and explosions and rockets, and it's just a more immersive and hardcore, I guess you could say, experience, as opposed to something that just kind of rumbles. And it does this by using two pretty beefy motors inside. I'm not going to take mine all apart, it's a bit of a thing, but yeah, you can see in this video by Heliflyer 7, there are these big motors and a series of girthy, lubricated gears that really make this thing pretty powerful when plugged into the wall. It has a 15-pin game port adapter here. You just plug this into your joystick/MIDI port on your sound card typically, but you also have right here a place to plug in that AC adapter, providing 12 volts at 1.3 amps. And it's then that everything kicks in. And you know, you can still feel the motors and gears and whatnot just doing this. Just sort of, you know, it doesn't really auto center or anything until there's power, but when it kicks in, you know it kicks in. Another nice thing about the way that this works is it doesn't rely on potentiometers as so many joysticks did. This has a digital optical sensor solution in there using infrared and optics to digitally get the controls across, which means that you don't have that potentiometer weirdness or gunking up or anything, but you also don't have to worry about calibration at all, because it just is what it is, and it works extremely well with very high precision, something Microsoft was bragging about constantly in the marketing on the box. A 16-bit processor with its own RAM just for all that. Patented digital optical technology. Yeah, it's just highly precise and lovely to use. So let's go back to the late 90s. Plug this thing into both the wall and the computer, set it up with the stuff that it came with and more things. And yeah, let's try out this lovely joystick. All right, it's all plugged in to the Megaluminum Monster, plugged into the wall. It's already providing a little bit of resistance. You can feel the motors just lightly pushing against when you do that. But yeah, it is all installed. Finally, this has taken, no joke, about 3.5 hours to get this software going. Oh man, you know, there was a whole thing where it's like it installed in Windows 98, which is what the Megaluminum Monster normally is. And the drivers and everything were fine, but the games wouldn't work, like Urban Assault and some of the other things that were specifically built to work with it that came with the joystick. So then I moved over to Windows 95 on the same machine, and the games would work, but the joystick was completely unrecognized. Now, I didn't get any footage of this because honestly I was so frustrated I didn't want the camera on. But yeah, it turns out the AW64 Gold sound card that I have in there, this was plugged into that game port, and it was fine on 98, but on 95, the drivers from Creative don't like this. Over the game port, it can't read it, and it saw it only as a regular gamepad. It came with some driver fixes on here, but those didn't work. It still just saw it in increasingly odd ways. So I had to switch over to plug this into the Vortex 2, and yeah, now it sees it correctly right here over this one. Anyway, now that we're in here, we can see that wonderful precision of those optical sensors in there instead of the potentiometers. It's really quite fantastic, and there is no way to actually do any calibration or anything like that because it doesn't need it. So yeah, you can just, you know, test it and see that it's working, and of course it is. It also installed this Sidewinder software here, so it pops this thing up, Sidewinder Central, and yeah, that brings up a control panel and some readmes and whatnot, but this right here, this includes profiles for a number of games. You can create your own, but it does come with a whole bunch of them. A lot of good stuff in here, and even some things that you might not expect, like, hey, Duke Nukem 3D is right there, which is a DOS game that does not support force feedback. So what's up with that? Well, it's a keyboard mapper, like a keyboard to joystick remapping program. So mapped joystick button 2 to A, 3 to space, 4 to strafe, and so on. Also lets you program macros for multiple movements and things like that, and program the shift button to do different combinations of buttons, but you can't just go around adding force feedback support to games that don't support it, unfortunately. I wish that was the case, but that's not what this does. This is just a thing that lets you set it up for different games that may not support a joystick, or this joystick in particular. So for instance, MS-DOS emulation is enabled for Duke 3D. It's treating it as just a generic Thrustmaster joystick, and you can adjust the dead zone and what the twisting does, stuff like that. But back into the control panel though, and this is where things get pretty fun. So you can change the force feedback effects to off or all the way up. And yeah, let's make it high and rigid. And now this right here, I love this. Check this out. Yeah, you can mess around with all the different types of effects that it's capable of doing. So machine gun, a diesel engine idling, plasma fire, car engine idling. Oh, that's the diesel again. There's the car. Yeah, it's a light little plasma cannon, or just, you know, whatever. It's approximating what it thinks might be like that in a game. I quite like its interpretation of jumping, which pushes it forward like that, and landing pushes you back. And then if you hold down shift, you get even more. So cannons, shotgun, nice. Those are pretty similar actually. Just pushing back and back and back, getting that recoil. Lightning gun, Gatling gun, pretty light actually. Plasma cannon, let's see here. Wind shear. That's neat. Torpedo, very light as well. And rocket launcher. Yeah, that's an interesting one. Yeah, if you don't really hold on to it, yeah. Like it'll push back. Oh yeah. That's just awesome. I love this little demo program. And this is pretty similar to what I first experienced with this back at CompUSA back in the day. I don't I don't remember if this is exactly, it was this. I seem to remember there being like some visuals that went along with it, more UI elements or something, but maybe it was just this. So you can really see the kind of forces you're getting here. This thing is intense, especially on the higher settings like this. But really, I mean, even on the lower settings, it's kind of cool. Like that's low. It's still a thing. That's also why I have it on this pad here. On its own, there is not nearly enough grippage to keep it in place. Like this thing is gonna fly all over the dang table whenever you're in a game. So let's get to a game. And we're gonna start with the one that it came with in this particular pack, Urban Assault. I'm so glad to see this running. It was like an hour just getting to this point, and then I was trying to get all the other games working, and then 3D Acceleration wasn't working with Windows 95 because I had a Voodoo 3 in here and I had to upgrade it to DirectX 7 point something, and oh my goodness. Anyway, we're finally here. The input settings, force feedback is enabled, and that's all it needs because this game is by Microsoft. It knows what to do straight away. So I'm gonna play just one of the training missions. Let's do one with different types of vehicles. And if you're not familiar with this game, it's actually pretty awesome. It's kind of a mixture of real-time strategy and, I guess, first-person vehicle combat, sort of.
Post station systems online.
Right, so basically you can...
Destroy all enemy targets seen on the
She
map.
might get a little annoying. Turn that down here. So basically, you can look around here in 3D at what's going on, or you can just click around on the map and do different things. So the objective in this one here is to destroy these 3 red objects, and we'll just spawn some vehicles on the ground. And then what we can do is jump into them. And now, okay, let's get the throttle in the right spot. So now we have direct control of this vehicle. So throttle forward. And then if we want to, yeah. We'll just blow up random buildings. So let's go find the objective. Oh, actually, we've got these little helicopters too. So if we want, we can just straight up jump into a chopper. And there we go. So now we're in that. Oh, you can feel the rotors doing their thing. Oop, nice little bump there. Okay, let's try to figure this chopper out. Okay. Oh, that's that missile that you can just follow along. That's not what I wanted to do. Heck yeah, dude. It's immediately immersive feeling these different types of vehicles react in different ways like this. Back up. There we go. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And let's just go back to the host station. You can also jump into random gun turrets that are just placed on different buildings. Quite a kick on that gun, like serious. Here's the other thing too, if you're not really holding it, you're not gonna get any kind of like dunk, dunk, dunk. It doesn't do every single time. You have to be giving it some resistance. So if I hold it as light as possible, you can really see. Oh, that joystick is happy to see me. Yeah, suck at random buildings. And enemies too, I guess. I don't know, may as well. Oh yeah. All right, let's move on to some Combat Flight Simulator. Another Microsoft game, so it is very much set to just use the joystick straight away. Force feedback right here. We got control, surface forces, stick, shaker, crash effects, ground bumps, and retractable gear thumps. Sounds good to me. Let's just do a random free flight. Anyone else like taking the Flight Simulator, I think it was 2000 planes and putting them in here? You totally can do that. Let's go with a Sopwith Camel here, more era appropriate, I suppose. And yeah, let's give it all the beans. Because I think we're on like a grass tarmac of some kind. A little choppy takeoff there, but hey, whatever. And now there's not much of any feedback here. It's just a little bit of resistance. Which, I mean, this is some pretty gentle flying here, but if we really start giving it some G's and stuff, oh yeah, it's like, it is pushing. Of course, you have some going on with the machine guns and bombs. I don't know if we have bombs. Not on this thing. I gotta say, that's a little bit of an underwhelming crash. I think the game crashed too. Nope, it's just. Well, let's go with something a little more exciting. P-51. Oh yeah, let's give it a bunch of rockets. Where do we want to take off from? How about middle wallop? All right. Lots of beans. There we go. Now we do have rudder control as well, which is nice. So just simple twisting here since we don't have any pedals or anything. Oh yeah, in the air. Oh, Those are more powerful guns. Yeah. All right. One of the bombs, or rockets rather, right? Yeah, we got rockets. Oh, I just like those guns. Do something with these flaps. I don't remember how to do the flaps. And I can definitely feel the G's. Much more force on the joystick there. Yeah, in fact, it's pushing me in different ways too. I think there's also some wind. Yeah, I'm not really moving my hand, it's just moving it for me. That's neat. Force feedback sticks are so cool in flight sims. Wish I had some buildings to blow up or some other planes, but... All right. Well, bit of a choppy experience. Let's move on to MechWarrior 3. Wow, this is already like weirdly in effect. Like the centering is aggressive. Ugh. It is really, yeah, pressing hard. It just wants to be in the middle. Now, this one, I don't believe it lets you actually enable or do anything in terms of customizing the force feedback, but it is just on, like if you have a Sidewinder, because it uses the API for this direct input. All right, we'll do some instant action. Mad Cat versus Firefly. A highly lopsided battle that'll be, but you know, and this is actually a game that was bundled with the joystick by Hasbro, I believe. For a time, it was definitely sold in stores together with this in particular. Yeah, lovely Mad Cat, extended range lasers, LRM-15s, Ultra AC-5s, good old autocannon, 15 double heat sinks, we are ready to go. Okay, whoa, throttle, throttle, throttle.
All systems nominal.
You gotta remember that, because, yeah. Okay. Oh yeah, that's feeling so good. It takes serious, like, bits of effort to just turn this thing. It feels heavy and huge. And then when you start moving forward, each footstep, it's like, oh yeah.
Group fire
That's gonna be a lot of heat.
Linked fire engaged.
Just do linked fire with the lasers for now. Screw it. Just dump everything. Oh no, I missed! How is this guy not dead? Oh, I just straight up shut down. There we go. Well, you know what? It's been a while, but this felt amazing. It still feels amazing. Oh my goodness. This is just about the most like resistance of any of the games so far. This is forceful feedback. Like, yeah, like shooting all those missiles at once. Oh, dude, that's so good. This thing is so good still. Now we got one more and it's pretty special. Star Wars Episode 1 Racer. I think it's already set. Yeah, I mean, we don't need to calibrate it because it is the joystick, then it is. All right. Oh yeah, force feedback settings. Use the force in this game. Got everything turned up to max. Now we're gonna go with Ebe. This game is fantastic. And with this stick, talk about transforming the experience. All right, so it's just a normal joystick at the moment, but immediately that kicks in, a little bit of resistance. Okay, a lot right there, holy crap. And the engine rumble is just like, it feels quite good. But nothing too crazy. This is perfectly normal-ish feeling gameplay, just with some rumble. That being said, I'm not doing that. Like, it is all the way back and very erect. When you put that engine boost on, let me get to that place where I can do it a little better. Oh man, yeah, even that, going this way and that way moves it. Oh, wow, that's a lot. The feedback on this game is insane when you turn it all the way up. Okay, let's try this again. Yeah, look at that. It's all the way back. Okay, let's just blow up. That's fine. Oh, I somehow survived. It's so much force pushing back. It's wonderful. Good grief. It's like arcade. If you've ever played something like Afterburner or, whatever, any number of arcade flight and combat games with a joystick where it has some serious force feedback. Okay, I just blew myself up. How do I repair? I don't remember. There it is. Anyway, pretty similar to that. Feels like an arcade game on this. Because it's, okay, holy crap. It's just cranked up so high, as high as it'll go in the control panel and as high as it'll go in game. Even hitting those. Oh yeah, I can feel it pulling this way, a lot because of the engine being out on the right. Look at all this. This is stupid. Oh, I wish they still made sticks like this. Dude, I think I'm still gonna make it in first with this terrible race I've been having. Hey, there we go. The power of force feedback, baby. Or mostly just very, very forgiving AI on that mode. Anyway, this is wonderful. I love this stick, especially for late 90s games, but honestly, I would still really like to use it with modern stuff. Yeah, this thing is still just delightful to use 20 whatever the heck years later, with the games and computers and hardware that supports it, of course. That does bring up the question, why don't I just use this on a modern system? It holds up in terms of the quality and everything, but you have the game port situation to deal with, of course. But there were, later models, the Force Feedback 2, that had built-in USB support, so that would be an option if you have one of those instead. But this, I just have this one, so how do I convert this over? Well, there are things like the USB Rockfire game port device. It's kind of old at this point, but, it's a popular solution for doing that type of thing. It just will not translate everything that this does. I don't think all of the inputs, because there are kind of a lot, and also the fact that the force feedback, the way that it works, relies on some MIDI in and out pins and things like that is just not going to do. Same, unfortunately, with more modern solutions like the GamePort adapter by Necroware. And this is awesome, and it does have built-in support for the Force Feedback Pro, but again, you're not going to get the actual force feedback part of it, at least not yet. I think it may be updated in the future, hopefully, to add that, but as of now, it'll just let you use it as a normal joystick, and that's kind of missing the point. And there have been other projects, there are things using Teensies and various microcontrollers. Specifically, I'm thinking of the FFB Vert. That is apparently a really good solution, and that actually does provide force feedback support for this in particular. I don't have one of those, or else I'd show that off, but yeah, it's kind of a niche within a niche thing. And so, I don't know, that really just gets me to the question of why the heck aren't force feedback sticks really a thing at all anymore? Why haven't more companies made these since then? After all, force feedback is practically a requirement with wheels and racing sims, but it's a true rarity in modern flight sticks. Well, online there's been speculated quite a bit over the years, and I've seen discussions about, patent trolls and things being held back legally with wranglings going on behind the scenes and whatnot. And while there are little kernels of truth to that here and there, that is definitely not the full story. If you'd like a really good video on the topic, I'd very much recommend this one by Flight Dojo going over the specifics. But to kind of sum things up, patents are only part of the story, but for that it does all go back to when Microsoft acquired Exos Incorporated to spearhead the Sidewinder product line, and also partnered with Immersion Corporation to develop what would become the Force Feedback Pro controllers. Immersion holds many hundreds of patents on this kind of stuff, a majority from what I gather pertaining to force feedback technology, so they were a natural choice for collaboration, and so together Microsoft created their line of FFB Sidewinders starting in 1997 and ending just 4 years later with the aforementioned Force Feedback 2 in August of 2001. Which you might notice is right before the release of the Xbox, which Microsoft Game Studios, of course, focused on from there. And only 2 more joysticks ever hit store shelves that licensed their API and technology and stuff, the 2005 Cytec Cyborg Evo Force and the 2009 Logitech G940. And well, that was that. The tech for direct input API force feedback joysticks is tied to Microsoft and Immersion, and the patents and all that are still out there. They could be licensed, but it's just one of those niche within a niche within a niche things that there's simply not enough interest. And there have been other force feedback sticks since '09, but all using their own technology, relying on plugins and specific software instead of simply working with direct input. On this note, I asked LGR Twitter followers about their own feedback stick experiences, and it's about what I expected. Most of y'all seem to enjoy the things until they broke, or until the novelty wore off, or simply had to stop using them due to lack of games and drivers, or overall OS and developer support. It makes sense, really, unless you're willing to spend a whole lot of money on something like what's offered by Brunner. We don't really have many options. Though there is a bit more affordable glimmer of hope with homebrew projects, like the VP Force Rhino FFB, which does indeed support direct input. It looks fantastic, but it's another one of those extremely niche things, and there's only one guy making them, and orders are backed up into the hundreds last I checked. So as much as I would like one of those, I guess for now I'm going to be sticking with the classic force feedback sidewinders and things like that. Which, you know, all things considered, considering how silly this is, it's not the worst position to be in. And if you had or have any of these force feedback sticks, let me know your experiences, whether or not you still use it. Yeah, pretty much all the stuff I asked about on Twitter. I really am interested in what the legacy of these is and what the future may hold. And I hope that you enjoyed seeing this video just farting around with one. I had fun making it at least. And as always, thanks for watching.